Hi, everyone. For this week's discussion topic, I'm choosing option one, um, which basically wants us to talk about Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail. Kind of how does that speak to us as human beings, and then why does it really matter? Um, what kind of stood out to me right away was just kind of the tone that he wrote this letter in, and also kind of the audience, the target audience that it was for. Um, it had a tone that feels very direct and personal to whoever's reading it, and um, I think that while yes, he was writing it to the clergyman, I also think that he knew that others would eventually see it, and I think that's kind of what gave it a little bit more powerful, meaningful tone is he basically meant for everyone to read it, even though he was only directing it to the clergyman. I think. Um, what also kind of stood out to me was how he basically brings up this bystander effect and bystander action, um, and he doesn't really bring up or talk much about any specific racist people or racist groups. He's more directing it at directing his frustration at the bystander groups um, that I believe he calls white moderates. Um, and I think it really does show um, uh, basically that the way I think of it is Martin Luther King probably knew that he wasn't going to be able to persuade a ton of these racist groups and racist people into being less racist or supporting um, the civil rights movement. Um, but if he could persuade some of the bystanders, it could at least kind of negate some of the bystander effect. And because essentially by standing around doing nothing, you were you were picking a side and you were picking kind of that opposition, basically. I think that's how we kind of saw that. Um, I think kind of one last point that kind of stood out to me um, was basically his like his response to being called an extremist. Um, he states that at one point, being an extremist for love and justice and goodness, he kind of mentions that it shouldn't be seen as a bad thing, and that's all he is really fighting for. It's kind of the love, justice, and goodness for everyone. He compares himself to figures in the Bible, Jesus, Paul, and then he even connects some of his fights and passion to Lincoln as well. I think what's kind of important for about this today is it shows that we can't just wait around and hope that something's going to happen. If we want to make a change, we can't we can't just sit around and expect somebody else to make the change for us. I think it also shows that being a bystander is just as negatively impactful as the one doing the hate crimes or saying the racially motivated comments. Um, I don't think anybody should sit around and watch another person's rights be violated and not take action. So I think I think it's very pertinent today, and I think it was definitely a very impactful letter.